When people come into our parish, we get all the information we need on the front end. We give a clipboard. It's 5 by 7. We've tried everything, by the way. We've done the interview technique. We've done the big clipboards. We've done it all. We put inserts in the bulletin. The best way to do it, this is a proven fact. Get a 5 by 7 clipboard. Put a brightly colored card on there. Welcome to, St. Swithin's. Give it to each person as you make out their visitor name tag that one Sunday. And the greeter should say, give this back to me on your way out. We get a 95% return rate on that. We ask for their name, their address, their email address, their telephone numbers, the names of their children and their ages, their Visa card number. Well, we don't get that, but we get everything else. We get everything else. If you ask for information, you will get it. It is imperative that you learn how to ask and quit being afraid to do it. Then it is very important to get people to coffee hour. And if you don't have a coffee hour, make one. Some of the most effective coffee hours are Lemonade or something in the narthex, but do something. Then here's the way it works. Here's the way it works. The person who escorts the person to coffee hour, their job is to introduce that visitor to 4 people. 4 people. So that now, this visitor now has a group of 5. Do you think they might come back now? They might. If you get them to coffee, this is what research shows us. If you get them to coffee hour, you have a 50% better chance of getting them back the next week. It's a hard jump. You actually have to take them by the arm almost, but get them to coffee hour and have a cadre of people. Now, you vestry folks and greeters, you have to model this behavior. You have to model this behavior. Bill Hybels, the pastor of Willow Creek Church in North Barrington, Illinois, and probably the most progressive and inventive church in the country, says that every church has mission leaks. So you'll get back to your parish and you'll get people revved up to do this. And for a few months, you'll be really on fire and it's going to work. But what's going to happen is that it's all going to leak out. It's going to leak out. And you're going to say, what happened? We were doing a great job and now we're doing a crappy job. As long as your vestry and your greeters continue to model this kind of behavior, you'll reestablish the mission. And people will see you and go, oh, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But you can't relent because you will fall back to bad behavior. You'll fall back to bad insular behavior. Sunday night follow-up. This happened at Beaumont too. One day, we had one of those Sunday evening services that 2 people came to. They're my favorite, You've been working all day and you go back to the church and it's you and 2 people that wanted to go to the lake instead of come to church. But anyway, enough of that. Not that I have any bad feelings about that. But anyway, I was in Beaumont and I was walking out the door and I noticed, you remember those, do any of you still have those red books, those visitor kind of books that kind of sit over here? They kind of say, they kind of sit there and no one ever looks at it. It just kind of, it just sits there like a museum piece. And I noticed that several people had signed in. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I just took this to my office right now and called all the people who visited today. And I did that. So I took it back to the office and I called. I got an answering machine and I talked to one person briefly. Finally, the third person I called was a physician. And I said, hey, this is Patrick Gahan. I'm the rector at the church that you visited today, St. Stephen's. And suddenly the person took the phone away from their mouth and said, oh my God, honey, it's the priest. And I realized that people didn't expect that kind of intimacy. They didn't expect that kind of heart-driven response. All I did was make a dadgum phone call. I have never stopped doing that. Clergy must make this call. Clergy must make this call. I had a rector from one of your congregations, one of your big churches, call me 2 years ago and said, look, I've relegated this person to make these calls. And so I said, forget that. Forget that. How can you model that you're serious if you're never going to make these calls? Now, dadgummit, we've been called to be called senior pastors for a reason. Get on the dadgum phone. Get on the phone and make the call. What should I say? You say, I sure am glad you came to St. Stephen's today. You honored us by being there. Can we talk about your kids? Can we talk about where you're coming from, what tradition you're from, and so forth? Just little things like that. You kind of make notes. One thing I have learned to do is today everybody kind of screens their calls. I know y'all don't do that, but But I tell people at Sunday worship, I'm going to be calling tonight during your favorite TV show. I had one lady I called one time. I called and I said, "Hi, this is Patrick Gahan from St. Stephen's." She says, "Why are you calling me during Desperate Housewives?" It was a short phone call. But tell people you're going to be calling and they'll be ready for you and you'll get a pretty good answer rate. But even if you get an answering machine, at least you've called. You've demonstrated not only to the people but also to your congregation that you're dead serious about doing this. And the clergy become a model to the congregation. It's very, very important that we take on this role. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't take that much time. Week after or second visit follow-up, that night when I call, I make a little record and I type it up. Now we have changed our data management system in our church. We've gone to a connection power, or as we say in Alabama, connection power. Because it's just a little more engaging than the one we have been using, but it makes no difference. Type up your information, rectors and assistant rectors, and then you send it to the staff. The very first thing you do at staff meeting is that you look at who the newcomers are. Before you talk about the leaky roofs, before you talk about the fact you can't pay the bills, talk about the newcomers. Then direct appropriate staff members or people on the vestry to make additional calls. Maybe they need your nursery or whatever. And then you can do bread delivery or any kind of different so forth. Have printed name tags prepared for Sunday for them. And finally, I say to you, rethink your newsletter. Rethink your newsletter. You need to have some kind of weekly. I know that some of you have these magnificent monthlies. I hate to tell you, but they're not very mission-oriented. If you want someone to come back, you have to send them some information that week. Now, using Constant Contact, which costs most congregations about $10 or $15, you can send out an electronic midweek newsletter that you can get a hold of people. But even if you have a monthly, have some type of weekly contact. If Mike Bassan calls somebody and says, "Look, I'm going to send you a newsletter this week," you'll know what's going on with the congregation. Very important. Okay. Year-long tracking. It's the biggest challenge. You got to know how you're doing. Let me tell you something happened to us. We reconcile records every year to see how we did in keeping people. 3 years ago, we were reconciling our records just on a spreadsheet, and we saw the number one population we were not getting to return were single mothers. I'm the oldest of 4 children raised by a single mother. And yet we were doing a terrible job keeping single mothers. You'll do the same thing. You'll find out, oh golly, we're not ministering to young adults, or we're not keeping single men. Whatever it is, you need to know how you're doing. If you don't keep records, you will not know how you're doing. And you know, how are you batting? I told someone a few months ago that in 2009 we only batted 300 to 400%. We batted 300 or 400, and I was kind of bemoaning that because I thought we'd be more like batting 500. He said, "Pat, 300 or 400 will put you in the Hall of Fame." So I can tell you right now, if you institute what I've told you today, not only will your parish be dramatically changed, but the Diocese of Texas will explode. If you don't do it, the results are predictable. Thank you.